Okay, just an opinion back with you, talking about the Smith & Wesson M&P 45. That is what you see there in front of you on the workbench. And just recently I acquired this this item, and I did a unboxing review, which you may have seen. I will put a link to that review here. After having done the unboxing, of course, I couldn't wait to get out and shoot it, so I did, in fact, get out and shoot it just yesterday, as a matter of fact. So hasn't taken me long to go from the retail counter to the shooting range and back to the review table. So here we are. The other little guys that you see there in the sort of in the upper corner are actually there as a just a little bit of an homage from me to a guy whose YouTube channel I enjoy watching. That is the Budget Armory. So he's always got a Gumby. I've always wondered why he doesn't have Pokey along there with him, so I thought I would put the pair up as a little shout out and an homage to the Budget Armory. So anyway, without too much further ado, I put about 140, 150 rounds through the M&P 45 yesterday, and I definitely have some initial thoughts. I had offered some very initial thoughts on the unboxing video, and those were mostly why did I decide to buy it type of thoughts. So I'm going to try and expand on those and provide some information that is based more on actual shooting. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the ergonomics. The ergonomics of this gun, and we can all see the gun is unloaded and clear by its position here, so I'm going to remove that for a minute. Ergonomics of this gun are, to me, they're very good. I have a relatively small hand. I'm about 5'7", 150 pounds, and you know, I don't have overly large meat hooks. So, you know, especially when it comes to looking for, you know, something like a 45 auto, you know, full-sized frame, one of the concerns I always have is, you know, how's that going to fit my hand? Am I going to be able to really have a good grip on it? Am I going to be able to work the controls, you know, without a lot of, you know, gymnastics on my part and stuff? And especially if I want to be able to, say, shoot a match, you know, like an IDPA match, with a gun like this, am I going to be able to get to the magazine release? Am I going to be able to get to the slide release easily enough and intuitively enough? So those are all important ergonomic considerations for me personally, and I think, you know, for most shooters as well. So first thing is, just in general, this gun has a very, very comfortable feel to me. Very comfortable. The grip is very smooth. Smooth if you're used to Glocks, which I am. If you're used to a 1911 with, you know, a wood grip or an aggressive polymer checkered grip, you're used to something a little more biting in terms of the feel and the granularity. But this is, you're going to find this to be smoother than that. So that's texture. Now, as far as just the ergonomic feel to it, it's just very nice. The curved back strap is, to me, gives a very natural handhold. I did change out the back strap. Mine came with the medium-sized back strap installed, and there was a larger and a smaller included. I thought, well, let me try the smaller one, and I did, and so it made a little bit of a difference. So it made it even that much nicer, again, for my hand. So it is good to know that, you know, you can change out that back strap and make some small adjustments one way or the other. Very likely I'm going to put some Talon grips on this, probably the rubberized variety. When I do, I will probably commit that to video for posterity as well, and we'll talk about that then. But even right out of the box the way it is. Very natural, very comfortable. I like the smaller back strap. The medium-sized back strap was not bad at all. But again, just a sort of a custom fit for my hand. I found while shooting it, it offered me plenty of good stability in the grip. The lack of a gritty and biting texture didn't seem to be a negative. I didn't have any problem holding it. Didn't have any problem, reacquiring my sight picture. Didn't have any problem with with the recoil and the smoothness of the grip or anything like that. So big A plus in that respect. Now, one of the things ergonomically, that I kind of noticed right off the bat was, you get this guard right here at my thumb. You have this ridge that's sort of like a guard in front of your magazine release. So with your grip on the firearm, you're not as easy. It's not as easy to just tap that button. I understand why that's there, because this is actually, a duty pistol. This was designed to be a duty pistol, not, wasn't designed for me to just run out and shoot a match with on a Saturday. So I get that. It does require you to make a little bit more of a, pronounced reach to get around that. Make sure you don't just tap that guard, because then nothing's going to happen. But having said that, it's a really good magazine release. It takes very little effort. You don't have to push that button very far at all, and there's a pretty decent push assist. So the magazine really does want to jump out of there, which is good. So I think that's going to kind of compensate. I did not have any trouble. Of course, I was just doing target shooting yesterday. I wasn't trying to do any kind of speed reloading or anything of that nature. But it was very intuitive, it was easy to reach, and I didn't have any problem with it. Okay, so that leads me to the trigger. The trigger on the M&P, on the M&P 45 specifically, M&P in general, I know before I made this purchase I had read and heard some various opinions. Some people talked about the trigger being not exactly what they wanted, but overall at this point I don't have any complaints. And again, I've fired all of 150 rounds so far, but certainly enough to get a feel for whether I can tolerate it or not. Sometimes you just can't get used to a trigger, or you just have a dislike for a trigger, and I didn't see either one of those being the issue. So it's a little heavy on the brake. It's got a decent amount of take up, so we're going from here to there in terms of having a take up, and then fairly heavy on the brake. It's got a pretty crisp brake once it does brake, but there's our reset. So reset travel is not the shortest, not the longest, but it's got a decent enough tactile feedback, and there's definitely some over travel there. It's got a decent enough tactile feedback on the reset, but there's really no audible feedback at all for the trigger reset. So if we go take up, brake, reset, right there, just a little bit of a click. But it was, truthfully, it was smooth enough. Now, before I took this thing out and fired it, I took it down. I cleaned out the factory installed grease that usually is pretty dried up by the time you get the gun, and I oiled it in all the key spots, and I did put a tiny drop of oil into the trigger mechanism, back up in here at the back of the frame. And I actually noticed right away when I did that, just through dry moving the trigger. And one of the things about this, unlike, for example, a Glock or Springfields, when you've got the slide off, when you have this thing in a field strip situation, you can work the trigger really nicely. So I like that about it. So I did oil up the trigger and didn't notice any problems with it. So, you know, maybe folks that don't like them are running them dry. I don't know. But I'm certainly open-minded. We'll see. The jury's going to still be out on whether or not I want to look at an aftermarket trigger. And maybe I'll look at somebody else's for comparison and see. General controls and functions. Start with the magazine eject, magazine release button. I talked a little bit already about that. You know, as far as the, you know, having a very pronounced and big guard there, but the button itself works very well. Very smooth. Doesn't take much pressure. If you're used to, for example, a Glock, you're going to find that this magazine release is much easier on your thumb than a Glock magazine release. It takes a lot less pressure, and again, it gives a nice push. The magazine really does want to jump out, which is nice. So I find that good. Slide lock. Oh, another thing about the magazine release is it is reversible. You are able to move the magazine release button over to the left side or to the right side of the gun for a left-handed shooter. So it can be either a right hand or left hand. Now that takes us in a segue to the slide release, which the slide release, as you can see here, is a truly ambidextrous right out of the box. So you have slide release control on both sides of the gun. So it's ambidextrous immediately. Again, so if you're a left-handed shooter, you swap out your turn the mag release button around and you have a fully functioning left-handed gun. The slide release lever itself, in terms of ergonomics, no complaints with it. It's works very well. It's not overly large, but it's, you know, it's about the size. The footprint of it is about the size of a standard Glock Generation 3 slide release, but it does stick out more. So there's it has a lot more ridge to it on the top. So you've got more, and almost like the extended mag release that you would put on a Glock, or that comes with the Gen 4, in terms of having a little bit more meat at the top. I found it very easy to reach. I found it very easy to control. I was able to work it with my thumb without any problem. And you know, if you're doing a speed reload, I generally use my weak hand thumb on the slide release when I'm doing a speed reload. But you certainly are capable of using this thumb without altering your grip too much. It works very well. And I didn't have any complaints with it at all. There is one odd thing that I'll talk about at the end that has to do with the slide release functionality in general, but I'll wait and talk about that toward the end. Okay, sights. The sights on this gun, let me see if I can line these up here for you at home. How's that? There we go. You have a 3-dot sight. I think, sorry, I'm trying to hold this. There we go. How's that? So you have 3-dot sight on this particular model. I do not know the M&P line well enough to be able to tell you if there's a great variety of options. Most manufacturers now give you some options in terms of sights. These are night sights. They do glow. I may try to do a little demonstration of that on video if I can. If I am able to do that, I will insert that either here or at the end They glow pretty nice. I would compare these sights in terms of the night sights. I would compare them to a car. I have a car with night sights that are, in my opinion, very, very good night sights, and these are every bit as good. Side by side, and I have looked at them side by side, you can't tell the difference in the dark. Very, very good. The other thing I like about the sights is, the front sight is just, drift adjustable. It goes into a dovetail mount, so the front blade is dovetail mounted. I do not know whether or not it is staked, and I did not look inside the slide yet to see if there's a screw or a pin that has that staked in there. It's a relatively low blade, which I like. I'm not going to put a suppressor or anything on the front, so I don't need, I don't need a big tall blade on my front sight. And it's also going to be very kind to holster choices because of that. The rear sight has a nice profile. It's pretty well rounded. It's all metal. Both the front sight and the rear sight are all metal, which I like. The profile is nice. It's actually attractive, and it goes well with the rest of the gun. But it also is nicely rounded. There's no real protruding sharp edges or corners. You can, if you run your finger along that, you can feel that it doesn't really catch. And you could, I'm sure, it's got just enough of a protrusion there that you could try to catch something on it if you wanted to. You actually could use this, if you were doing an emergency one-hand operation, you've got enough meat there that you could cock the weapon with that sight. It will grab enough. I don't know if you can see that there's just enough of a sort of a ridge at the front, but it definitely would grab. You could cock the gun with that. But again, and probably the nicest thing about these sights is the radius. You got a 7-inch. I don't know if they spec it out at 7 or if they're a little, at 6 point something. But honestly, why? Hold on. Let me do something here. Why should we trust anybody but our own eyes? So I'm gonna go right to the back end of the front sight, and you can see that to the dots on the rear sight we've got looks like 6 7/8. So yeah, you've got just about a full 7 inches of sight radius. Very good, very good. Let's see what else about the sights. The rear sight is adjustable for windage only. There is a small Allen screw here that you would need to loosen, and then you are able to drift the rear sight either right or left in its dovetail, and then you would retighten that set screw. I try not to have to adjust sights if I can help it, but that one is adjustable. Again, windage only, no elevation adjustment. So if you have, if you find that it has a 6 o'clock hold or whatever, it shoots high or shoots low, you're just going to have to compensate because there's no way to do that with these sights. Okay, so a couple of miscellaneous things. One of the things that I really like is that it's got a nice balance. Holding it in the store, holding it at home, and all that is one thing. But taking it out and shooting it, I found it to have a very, very nice natural balance. It's not a whole lot of weight. I apologize, I don't have the specs. I could throw those down into the information here, or you could just Google them or look up on Smith & Wesson website. But we're probably in the, I'm guessing, 28-ounce range with this gun. And like most full-size polymer-framed guns, it's very top-heavy. Obviously, that's where all the real weight is. It's a stainless steel slide, stainless steel barrel, and other stainless steel parts. I'm not sure exactly which. I don't think the guide rod is stainless steel. That actually looks and kind of feels like aluminum to me. But the barrel is stainless steel, and the slide is stainless steel. The black finish is I forget what they call the black finish. I will look it up, and I will put it somewhere down here in the frame, so I don't want to misspeak. So balance, really good. Feels very good. Top quality fit and finish. Just overall quality and workmanship, top quality. Materials, very good. Little details like, the Smith & Wesson logo that's stamped into the side of the slide, and I don't know if I can really get a close-up. Really try and get a close-up on that, and probably throw everything way out of focus, which I don't want to do, but just the quality of the M&P logo and the Smith & Wesson logo that are stamped into the slide. There's like no, I mean, I've seen coins in circulation that have worse quality stampings. This is really good, and when you look at it under even a magnifying glass, it's just really super quality. I find the whole gun to be that way. These fish scale serrations in the slide, they have an aesthetic value. They probably also, were somebody's marketing idea. It's like, hey, the cool guns these days, like the XDMs, or they have these front serrations and they have these cool, aggressive design. So maybe it was driven by that, but wow, you really get a grip. Something about the, that curved sort of, like, to me, it's like a fish scale. Is what it reminds me of. Serration right there. You really get an extremely good grip on that. Same with the front one, as I talked about a little bit during the unboxing. That front one, you really can get, with just 2 fingers, you really can get a handle on that. So those are really good, functional, and to me, nice looking. I think they add to the overall appearance. So kudos there. The other thing, one of the other things I like, just in a kind of sort of a miscellaneous category, is that the gun is very easy to field strip. Let me just do a really super quick demonstration of that. From the slide lock back, you take this takedown lever and you rotate it clockwise so that it's pointing down. Then you release the slide, pull the trigger, and that's it. Now there is a way to field strip this gun without pulling the trigger. That is a, I guess it's a safety device. It's an optional nanny type device, but there's a, probably not going to be able to see it too well here. There's a little lever, point to it with a pencil, right down there. It's like a yellow colored lever, and what you would do is you would take this pin, which is actually a little bit hard to get out of here just because the edges are pointy. So you pull this out, and this is also the way you would change your back strap. Once you remove that, the back strap pops right off and a new one pops on. This pin goes through it and holds it in place. But you would actually take this and you would use it to pull that lever down, and it's a decocking lever, so that's what that does, and it actually will go down like that. There may be times I find that to be something I need to do. For the most part, I don't have any real desire to do that, so I just pull the trigger. But again, takedown is real easy. Slide disassembles just like every other semi-auto very easily. You basically have your 3 main parts. You have your recoil spring and guide rod, which is a captured spring assembly, single spring. You take out your barrel, And that is it. While I'm in here, I'm doing a quick peek. I do not see a screw or stake for that front sight. Just to answer that earlier question. So the only thing I noticed a little odd, slide the barrel in, put the guide rod in. I noticed the first time I reassembled this, and it might have just been, you know, my idiot learning curve, that the guide rod had to sort of be, had to hold your tongue a certain way to get it in. Yeah, see, now we're okay. But I found that I didn't have it going straight in that hole, and you can see there's a, I guess that's an octagon. I haven't counted the sides, but that's not a round end on that guide rod. It's octagonal, looks like. I don't know if it needed to be turned a certain way, but it was interesting. But it's as easy as that. So just reassembly. You just slide the slide back on, lock it open, flip that disassembly lever back to its home position in the lateral, and then that's it. So, you know, one of the things in the miscellaneous category that I like, very easy to take down, as you know, that's important. You know, I don't want to have to use special tools. I don't want to have to go through, you know, a lot of different screws and bolts and bushings and things like that if I can help it. I like to be able to get the slide off, get the components out, get it back together as quickly as possible. Not so much for cleaning, but you know, if you do have to do that in the field, you don't need it to take any longer than it should. So. What else? Shooting. No failures to feed. Everything went up the ramp really good. Sight reacquisition is extremely fast. I'm going to insert a slow motion video. Maybe I'll insert that right here. That shows one cycle of firing the gun, and this is as slow as my software will allow me to slow it down, which is actually, believe it or not, extremely slow. But even at that incredibly slow speed, of course, it's a gun firing, so you see how fast it is. But if you watch how quickly this gun returns to a nice level sight plane, extremely good. I mean, one of the best out of all the guns I own and have shot. So there's, as I train with this maybe and get decent with it, there's definitely some opportunity here for some decent speed and shooting with that sight acquisition. Grouping was good. It was as good as I am. Let's put it that way. I have some target impact video that I'll insert as well. And you'll see that there were a few flyers. One looked like it went high right. I had a couple that went low, and maybe a tiny bit left. But for the most part, everything was easily in my 8-inch circle that I was shooting at. And even more importantly, I had 3 or 4 rounds that almost essentially went into the same hole. So I had 3 or 4 in like a 1-inch group. So it looks like it's going to be very accurate, very reliable in that respect. And that was with a combination of different ammo. I think I shot 3 magazines in that sequence, and each magazine contained a different type of ammo. We had wad cutter, we had reload, round nose, and we had factory ammo, flat nose, full metal jacket. So a little bit of everything was in that. The grouping was really good. Like I say, the grouping was as good as I am. Any flyers or anything that didn't go into the same hole was more likely me than the gun, believe me. Another comment on that, talking about feeding the different ammo, the feed ramp on this, and I should have showed this while I had it apart, but I truly don't think you'd be able to see. You can see the feed ramp right here. The feed ramp does have a little rough look to it. It has like tool marks. You can see where they ground it, and it's almost ground in rows or grooves. I have kind of noticed throughout the years that the feed ramp is not really the Smith & Wesson claim to fame. But it works fine. It didn't give me any problems, so there's no reason to feel like I need to run off and have it polished or anything like that. But, you know, just kind of an observation more than anything. And the only other comment, I guess, that I wanted to share is I found an interesting situation yesterday with, I believe it was just one type of ammunition. I believe that it was consistently one specific type of ammunition. That was the jacketed flat nose hardball. It was actually Lawman brand, but you know, just kind of your generic target ammo. What I found was, in a slide lock position, reloading, insert the magazine, give it a good aggressive seating tap, the slide would close without me touching the slide release. It did it 2 or 3 times. It didn't do it 100% of the time, but it did it enough. It did it two or three times. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't mind it. The only thing I mind about something like that is when it's an inconsistent situation. If I knew that every time I'm doing a slide lock reload, all I got to do is that, and I don't have to touch the slide release, I could be very happy with that. It's certainly it's gonna take time off my reload. The only thing I don't really care for is when a situation like that is inconsistent, because then you don't know what to expect, and not knowing what to expect causes surprise, and surprise causes time. Because whether you admit it or not, your mind has to stop and think about something when it didn't expect it to happen. So I don't see that as any kind of a malfunction. I actually did a little bit of searching online. There's a Smith & Wesson forum, and a lot of M&P users were talking about that, and apparently it's not that uncommon. And I know it's not uncommon in handguns in general, but I think it's a pretty rare situation. But apparently the M&P line is prone to do that, or at least known to do that. So I'm going to keep my eye on that, see if I can narrow it down to a type of ammo, or, you know, some people on the forum even said, you know, just doing that would do it. Now mine, I cannot replicate that situation without, you know, having it had just happened to me, you know, at random. I do not have any snap caps or anything in 45, so I'm not going to try and put any ammo in here and replicate that, because I'm not in a safe setting where I would do that with live ammo. So we'll see. Next time I take it out and shoot it, I will definitely be paying attention to that. But okay, so that's it. I think that was everything I wanted to cover for the first shooting. Like it a whole lot. The only thing I'm likely to do is, in the very near future, I'm probably going to put some Talon rubberized grips on here, just to give it a even better grip. I don't have any complaint really with this grip. It's just not it's not an aggressive, grippy surface. It's not going to grab you like some of the Springfields do, and like a Glock, especially like a Gen 4 Glock does. It doesn't have that type of an aggressive stippling or deep checkering in it. It just has this texture, but it did work nice. I don't have any complaints with it. So, you know, we'll see. I may do that. Trigger, I don't know. The jury's out on trigger. I didn't have any problem with the trigger. I didn't have a bad enough experience with the trigger where it registered, you know, while I was shooting. The truth is, I really didn't notice the trigger that much while I was shooting, and to me, that's a very positive thing. So, I'm not one to just do things just to do them, you know, because it's a popular thing to do. So we'll see. But that is my first shots and first thoughts for the M&P 45. This is probably taking its place in the lineup of being one of my very favorite guns already. I like this a lot. I look forward to doing a lot of shooting, and I might have some updates in the future. But there we are. There's the Smith & Wesson M&P 45, and that is it.